learning session of Principles of Microeconomics BECC 131. Today is the last session of this BECC 131. As you know that I have discussed all the topics of BECC 131 paper like scarcity and problem of choice, theory of demand, elasticity of demand, supply, elasticity of supply, applications of demand and supply, consumer behavior. Under this, I have discussed with you utility analysis and indifference curve analysis. Today, I will be discussing here production function and theory of cost. Production function and cost both are interrelated concept because production, when we want to produce goods and services, then we have to use cost. The cost is the money expenses which incurred in the production of goods and services. So production and cost are interrelated. Now in this topic, production function, first of all, I will explain production function, then theory of cost. Production function shows technical relationship between input and output. Law of production has two types. Production function has two types. One is returns to factor and second is returns to scale. Law of production is based on two time period. One is short run and other is long run or long time period. As you know that Marshall has divided time period into three categories. One is very short period, second is short period, third is long period. Here we are discussing here that production function has two laws. One is returns to factor and returns to scale. And law of production is based on time period, which is one is related with short run and other is related with long run. Now returns to factor is applicable in short period. As you know that short run is in which we can't change all types of goods production. In short run, we have very less time. If we want to produce more units of any commodity, we can change only variable factor units because fixed factors can't change in long run, in short run, sorry. Returns to scale is applicable in long run. So these are the two laws of production. One is returns to factor and other is returns to scale. Returns to factor is applicable in short run and returns to scale is applicable in long run. Next is production function. Production function, we can show this with the help of this chart. Production function is divided into two categories. One is short run production function, other is long run production function. Short run production function in this time period returns to a factor is applicable and long run production function is related with returns to scale. In short run, one factor is variable and other we assume that other factors remains constant. And under this returns to scale concept, which is applicable in long run, all factors of productions are variable. Because in long period, we have too much time, so we can change all the factors of production very easily. Returns to factor theory is based on short run analysis and returns to scale or long run production function, according to its name, it is long run analysis. Returns to a factor is also known as law of variable proportion and returns to scale law is also known as law of returns to scale. These are the other name of these law. One is returns to a factor, its another name is law of variable proportion, and we can say that this law may be called law of diminishing factors or diminishing returns. Returns to scale is known as law of returns to scale. This is the brief description of production function. Next, what is the difference between short run production function and long run production function? In short run production function, it defines the functional relationship between input and output of a commodity for a short time period. In short run, some factors remains constant, only one factor is variable. We assume that land capital remains constant. We can change only the units of labor for the production of goods and services. So in short run, only one factor which is variable factor, that is labor. We can't change other factors, we can change only units of labor in short run. But in long run, it defines the functional relationship between input and output of a commodity for a longer period of time. Long run production function is based on long period. In long run, all the factors of productions are variable which can easily change. In long run, as you know that we have too much time, we can change all the factors of production according to the level of output. If we want to produce more, we will use more factors of production. If we want to produce less, we can change or we can use less production factors. Next point is capital labor ratio. In short run, capital labor ratio changes with a change in output. And in long run, in this capital or labor ratio does not change with a change in output. Short run production function law is called returns to a factor. And long run production function is known as returns to scale. The curve of the short run production function is parallel to the horizontal axis. This curve explains expansion path because in short run, capital will remain constant, only labor unit will change. If we take units of labor on x-axis and units of capital on y-axis, and in short run, when capital remains constant, only the units of labor varies. In this case, expansion path or curve will be a horizontal line. And in long run production function, the curve of the long run production function is upward sloping of 45-degree line. Because in long run, all the factors of production can easily change. If we take on x-axis labor and on y-axis capital and we have too much time, we can easily change both the factors unit according to the level of output. So in long run, if labor and capital both can change simultaneously, in this case, production curve will be upward sloping or 45-degree line, which start from the origin. Next is fixed and variable factor. In short run, fixed factors remains fixed. Variable factors remains variable. Here capital or land, we assume that it's a fixed factor and labor is a variable factor. And in long run production function, all the factors of productions are variable. All the factors of production can easily change. Next is scale of production. The base of difference is scale of production. In short run production function, there is no change in the scale of production. But in long run, you can change the scale of production function according to clear from its name that it's a returns to scale. So returns to scale law, in this case, we can change the scale of output. It means if we are producing in a small scale, then we can produce in a large scale. Scale is showing that what you are producing, amount of output. If you are producing in small scale, then you can produce in large scale output. So scale of production is always changed with a change in output. Entry and exit of firm in short run, as we know that in short period we have less time, so firms can't, there are barriers, or firms can't enter or exit from the market. But in long run, all firms have too much time, so firms can easily enter and exit from the market. So this is the basic difference between short run and long run production function. Next is, when you want to study about law of variable proportion, then you must have to know about what is total product, what is average product, and what is marginal product, and what is the relationship between these TP, AP, and MP, because we are discussing here about production. So you must have to know about the concept of production. Production has three concepts. One is total product, other is average product, and next is marginal product. We can say that MP or MPP. MPP is known as marginal physical product and MP is marginal product. AP is average product or APP is average physical product, because we produce all goods in physical terms, which can be seen, which can be touchable. So we can put here APP or AP, it has no difference. So the definition of total product is, first of all, I will explain the definition of TP, then AP, then MP. What is total product? Total product, as clear by its name, it's a total. Total is the total quantity or aggregate or entire output. What a producer produced So total production is the total quantity of output produced by a firm for a given quantity of inputs. Inputs are like land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. So total production is the entire quantity of output which is produced by the producer or firm for a given units of input or given quantity of inputs. Next is average product or average physical product. We can say it. Average product is the product of per unit output. Average product we can get when we divide total product by the number of inputs. So average product, the word average represent here per unit of output, or average product is the total product divided by the number of inputs producing it, we can get AP. So we can get AP by using the formula of TP divided by the number of inputs. Or in other words, average product is the per unit output of any commodity. Third definition of production is marginal production. Marginal product or marginal physical product is the net change in total output when one more input is employed. MP always shows the difference or change in total output when we use one more additional unit of input. So the formula of MP is delta TP upon delta Q. We can say that this delta TP shows change in total product and delta Q shows change in number of inputs. So this is the definition of TP, AP, and MP. With the help of these three concepts, we can show that law of variable proportion, which is known as returns to factor, which is also known as law of diminishing return. Next, what is the relationship between TP, AP, and MP? These three concepts are interrelated with each other. TP represent total product, MP represent marginal product, and AP represent average product. When AP rises, then MP will also rise. In this diagram, here TP is increasing. After that, TP will become maximum, and at last TP start falling. So when TP increases, because AP is also calculated with the help of TP, the formula of AP is TP divided by Q. And MP is also calculated by TP. MP's formula is delta TP upon delta Q. So AP and MP based on TP. When TP is increases, then AP and MP will also rise. When TP becomes maximum or constant, then MP will become 0. AP can't 0. When TP start falling, MP becomes negative. In that case, AP will start declining. But AP can't be 0. AP can't be negative. AP can fall, AP can rise. But AP, average product, can't be 0 or negative. MP can be 0, can be negative. And total production in the initial stage, TP will increase. When both increases, TP increases, AP increases, MP increases, that is called inflection point on TP curve, which is showing here. Next stage occur when MP is 0 and TP is maximum. Here three stages of production are showing. One is when increasing returns to a factor, in that case total production, average production and marginal production all will increase. In second stage of production, TP will become maximum and MP will become 0. And in third stage, when TP start falling, MP becomes negative. This is the third stage of production, which is known as negative returns to a factor. First stage is called increasing returns to a factor. Second stage is known as constant or diminishing returns to a factor. And third stage is negative returns to a factor. In this chart, here AP, when AP rises or falls, MP will be greater than AP or MP will be less than AP. When AP rises, then MP will rise before than AP, so MP will be greater than AP. And when AP falls, then MP will fall before than AP, so MP less than AP. At when AP is maximum, here MP will be equals to AP. When TP rises, MP will be greater than 0. When TP is maximum, MP will be 0. The law of diminishing marginal return is responsible for the inverted U shape. Inverted U shape or reversed U shape of both the MP and AP curves. When MP is maximum, when MP reaches its maximum and begins to descend, the law of diminishing marginal returns comes into force. This will be at the point where inflection point is showing here TP curve. So, law of variable proportion or returns to a factor or law of diminishing return we can show with the help of this diagram. Here we are showing three stages of production. One is increasing returns to a factor, second is diminishing returns to a factor, and third is negative returns to a factor. So TP, MP and AP all are interrelated with each other and we can show returns to a factor with the help of this diagram. Next is isoquant. Isoquant is also represent production or producer behavior. Iso, iso means equal and quant means quantity. So isoquant shows equal quantity or same level of output. It's just an alternative way of representing the production function. Consider a production function with two inputs like factor 1 and factor 2. We have four factors of production which is known as primary factors, that are land, labor, capital and entrepreneur. If we use two factors of production like labor and capital, then we can show isoquant curve analysis. It's the alternative way of representing the production function. Isoquant curve is the set of all possible combinations of the two inputs like labor and capital, that yield the same maximum possible level of output, or that yield the same amount of output. So, in other words, we can say that isoquant curve shows different possible combinations of two factors of production like labor and capital, which gives same level of output to the producer. Next, we can show isoquant curve with the help of this table. Here combinations are A, B, C, D, E, and the units of labor is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Units of capital is 30, 22, 16, 12, 10. But the output of cloth, which can be measured in meters, is constant like 400, 400, 400, 400 and 400. It means at A combination, when we use 2 units of labor and 30 units of capital, we get same level of output. If we choose B combination, in which 4 units of labor and 22 units of capital is employed, then we also getting same output 400. At C combination, the units of labor is 6 and the units of capital is 16, and the output of cloth is same 400. If we choose D combination, when 8 units of labor is employed and 12 units of capital is employed, then we are also getting same level of output 400. And at E combination, here units of labor is 10 and capital units of is 10 employed and getting same output 400. It means isoquant shows that if we use two factors of production like labor and capital, different possible combinations are showing same level of output. So iso is equal and quant means quantity. So isoquant, which is clear by its name, it shows the same level of output by using two factors of production, and these different combinations shows that isoquant represent the same quantity of output. Either we can choose A combination or B combination or C combination or D or E, but we will get same level of output. Next, isoquant in economics. This isoquant can be derived from quantity and the Greek word ISO. ISO meaning equal is a contour line drawing through the set of points at which the same quantity of output is produced. By changing the quantities of two or more inputs, but we will use only two inputs here. These two inputs are labor and capital. Isoquant curve is a downward sloping curve always, which is convex to the origin, and on x-axis we always take labor and on y-axis we always take capital. And when we employed different combinations of labor and capital, and if we join all these points, then we can get isoquant curve, which represent that as well as we increase the units of labor, we will decrease the units of capital because we want to get same level of output. So if we use more capital, then we will use less labor. And if we use more labor, then we will use less capital. So isoquant curve is always downward sloping curve. Next is properties of isoquant. Isoquant curve further from the start from the uh, it's always downward sloping curve, not start from the origin. It's a downward or convex to the origin from left to right. Isoquant curve slopes down to the right, and isoquant curve may be more than one. Higher isoquant curve shows higher level of output, and lower isoquant curve shows lower level of output. Isoquant do not intersect each other, same as indifference curve. As I have discussed with you indifference curve in consumer behavior analysis theory, same as indifference curve, isoquant also not intersect each other. Because if indifference curve intersect each other, it will give us inconsistent result. Same as isoquant can never intersect each other because each isoquant curve shows different combinations of two factors of production. And as you know that higher isoquant shows higher level of output and lower shows lower level of output, then how we can say that isoquant curve intersect each other? And isoquant curve usually always convex to the origin due to diminishing marginal rate of technical substitution. As you know that labor and capital, these are the two techniques of production. One is labor intensive, other is capital intensive. And we are using here two factors of production, which is labor and capital, which represent the two technologies of production. So isoquant curve is always convex to the origin. This is the main important feature of this isoquant analysis. Next is isoquant never intersect each other. Next is isoquant curve slopes always downward from left to right. And higher isoquant curve may be more than one. And higher shows higher level of output and lower shows lower level of output. Properties of isoquant can be shown with the help of this diagram. One is isoquant curve. There are too much isoquant curve, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this isoquant curve is downward sloping, convex to the origin, and isoquant curve may be more than one. Higher shows higher, that is higher amount of output, and lower shows lower level of output. And isoquant curve never intersect each other. There are two exceptions also, same as indifference curve analysis. In case of perfectly substitutable factors of production, if we are saying here that labor and capital both are substitute factors, then isoquant curve will never be convex to the origin. It will be a straight line which touches to x-axis and y-axis. And in case of perfectly complementary factors, complementary things are those things which can use always together. And substitutes are those goods or those factors which can substitute in place of each other. So in case of perfectly substitutable factors of production, isoquant curve shape will be straight line. And in case of perfectly complementary factors of production, in case isoquant curve slope will be L-shaped curve or 90-degree angle. So these are the two exceptions, perfect substitute and perfect complementary. But generally isoquant curve slope is always downward or convex to the origin. It never intersect each other. It may be more than one. Higher shows higher output and lower shows lower output. Next is isoquant map. What is isoquant map? Isoquant map is family of isoquant curve. It may be also known as group of isoquant curves. So isoquant map can be represented by using these so many isoquant curves. Like here, I1 is showing isoquant number 1, isoquant number 2, isoquant number 3, I4 is isoquant number 4, I5 is isoquant number 5. Here so many isoquant curve is drawing on the same curve. On x-axis, labor is written and on y-axis, capital is written. Labor is denoted by L and capital can be denoted by K. So isoquant map is the family of isoquant curve. If we draw so many isoquant curve on the same curve, then it will be called isoquant map. Next is isoquant curve, which is always downward sloping curve, which is always convex to the origin, which shows the different combinations of capital and labor that gives the same level of output. Same output or same total physical product. For example, total physical product was 400, 400, 400, 400. At A combination, when we use or B combination or C combination or D combination, if we choose any combination of these two factors of production, but the output will remain same, in that case, isoquant curve will be a convex to the origin or downward sloping curve. Next is producer equilibrium. Producer equilibrium is very important concept under this producer behavior or isoquant curve analysis. As we have discussed with you in indifference curve consumer equilibrium concept. In consumer equilibrium concept, consumer wants to gain maximum satisfaction by spending minimum resources. Same as producer will be in equilibrium position where producer will get maximum output or maximum profit at the minimum cost. Producer equilibrium can be attained where the iso cost line is tangent to the isoquant curve. ISO cost line is same as budget line or price line, which I have discussed with you in consumer behavior or indifference curve analysis. So ISO cost line shows different possible combinations of two factors of production which producer can use for the production of goods and services or producer can buy with the help of its given resources. ISO cost line is always downward sloping line or straight line and isoquant curve is always convex to the origin curve or downward sloping curve. Producer equilibrium is the point where the isoquant curve just touches to the iso cost line. But you must have to remember that isoquant curve never intersect to the iso cost line. If isoquant curve intersect iso cost line, then producer will not be in equilibrium position. Producer will always be at the equilibrium position where isoquant curve touches to iso cost line. And at the equilibrium point, the slope of isoquant curve and the slope of iso cost line should be same. We can show the slope of isoquant curve by MRTS. This MRTS is marginal rate of technical substitution, which is always diminishing. That's why curve is convex to the origin. And the iso cost line slope depends upon price of labor and price of capital. The price of labor is wages and the price of capital is rate of interest. We can represent it with the help of W by R. This W by R represents the slope of iso cost line. and MRTS represent the slope of isoquant curve. So producer equilibrium will be determined on that point or attained on that point where the slope of isoquant curve and isocost line will be equal. And isoquant curve must be convex to the origin at the point of equilibrium, not concave. If isoquant is concave, it means marginal rate of technical substitution is increasing, and this is not the condition of producer equilibrium. So, in case of concave isoquant curve, producer equilibrium will not be determined. We can show producer equilibrium or least cost combinations with the help of this diagram. Here, NM is a straight line or downward sloping line, which represent isocost line. And isoquant curve is here IQ1, IQ2, IQ3. I is iso, Q is quantity. So IQ1 is isoquant number 1, IQ2 is isoquant number 2, and IQ3 is isoquant number 3. So isoquant 1 is intersecting this isocost line. So equilibrium will not be determined here at A point or B point because isoquant is intersecting these NM isocost line at 2 points A and B. Second isoquant curve 2 number is touches to isocost line at E point. This E point shows producer equilibrium or least cost combination. And here at E point, both conditions are fulfilling here. The two conditions of producer equilibrium is, number one is isoquant curve must be tangent to the isocost line, then producer equilibrium can be attained. And the second condition is isoquant curve must be convex to the origin. And here isoquant, you are seeing here that isoquant is downward sloping or convex to the origin. So here at the point of E or equilibrium point, both the conditions of producer equilibrium is fulfilling. So equilibrium will be attained only at point E, not on above isoquant curve and not on below isoquant curve. So equilibrium is always determined where producer get maximum output at the minimum cost and where both or two conditions are fulfilling. So producer equilibrium, the condition of it is, one is slope of isoquant curve must be equals to slope of isocost line, and second is isoquant curve must be convex to the origin. At IQ2 is showing that both the conditions are fulfilling at E point. So capital unit is K0 we are employing, and we employed L0 units of labor, and producer is getting maximum level of output. So this is the producer equilibrium or least cost combination, which is very important in this unit. Next, sometimes in exam, the question they ask that how you can show that returns to scale or returns to a factor with the help of isoquant analysis. Returns to scale law is applicable in long run, and returns to scale law shows that there are three stages of production. One is increasing return, second is constant return, third is decreasing returns to scale. In long run, all the factors of productions are variable, and we can change all the factors input for increasing the level of output. And in long run, we have too much time, so we can easily change the scale of output. Here, these three diagrams represent three stages of returns to scale. In first diagram, on x-axis, first of all, When we draw diagram, any diagram in production function, we take one factor like labor on x-axis and capital on y-axis. A line which start from the origin, that is called expansion path. And this expansion path is 45-degree line, which shows that this expansion path represent long run expansion path. Because in long run, as you know that labor and capital, all the factors of productions are variable, you can easily change both the factor units. No one factor is called fixed. So expansion path or line which start from the origin is always a 45-degree line which divided 90-degree angle into two parts. And the downward sloping curve which shows the unit of 50, then 100, then 150. These three lines, which is downward sloping curve, shows isoquant curve. In the first case, here production is 50, 100 and 150. And the difference lies in between of these diagram is equal. So it represents that constant returns to scale is applicable. There is no difference between input and output. If all inputs produce the same level of output, then constant returns to scale will be applicable. For example, if we use 10% input and get same 10% output, then production function of returns to scale will be called constant returns to scale. In second diagram, expansion path same as start from the origin or 45-degree line, which represent that labor and capital both factor can change simultaneously by the same ratio, and three isoquant curve IQ1, IQ2, IQ3, which shows 50, 100 and 150 units of output level. But in this diagram, in second diagram, here the difference between 50 to 100 is more and the gap between 100 to 150 is less. So isoquant curve for output level 50, 100 and 150 get closer and closer together. This represents increasing returns to scale situation. And the third diagram is showing decreasing returns to scale. In this, the gap between isoquant curve is increasing. In the beginning, gap is less. After that, gap is more. When the gap is increasing, it means we are using more inputs but getting less output. That shows decreasing returns to scale. Increasing returns to scale shows that we are using less input and getting more output. If we use 10% input and get 20% output, that will be called increasing returns to scale. If we use 10% input and getting 5% output, then it will be called decreasing returns to scale. So in case of decreasing return, isoquant curve become far, or the gap between isoquant curve will be larger or greater. So here the units of output is not the difference between these. Units are same 50, 100, 150, 50, 100, 150. In three diagrams, units are same. Isoquant curve shapes downward or convex to the origin. And the 45-degree line is same in these three diagrams. But the difference is the gap, the difference which lies in between of these isoquant curve. If gap is equal, it will show constant returns to scale. If gap is diminishing, it will show increasing returns to scale. And when gap is increasing, then it will show decreasing returns to scale. So returns to scale can be presented by using isoquant curve analysis. Next is decreasing returns to scale. You can show these returns to scale with the help of this diagram also. Units of labor on x-axis, units of capital is on y-axis. Here you can show with the help of changing the units. If we use 10% input and then 20 units, then 40 units. Here Increasing return law is applicable because 10 to 20 and 20 to 40, here output is increasing, and decreasing returns to scale in case when input when we use input like labor and capital and the units of output is 10. After that, next unit of output is 18 and then 20. It means first the units of output is increasing by 8 units because the difference between 10 to 18 is 8. And after that, 18 to 20, it means unit of output is increasing only by 2. So here the units of output is decreasing. So we can show this decreasing returns to scale with the help of this diagram. Both the diagrams are same. Uh, you can use first three diagrams for representing this returns to scale, or you can use these two diagrams for showing increasing return and diminishing returns to scale. Next is isoquant curve and returns to factor. As I have discussed with you returns to factor in the beginning, returns to factor is also known as law of variable proportion or law of diminishing return, which is applicable in short run. It's a short run law of production, and this short run law of production shows that the units of labor you can change in short period, but the unit of capital will remain constant because in short run we have less time. We can change only the units of variable factor, which is labor, but the fixed factors remains constant like capital. So expansion path in the short run is always horizontal line, which is RP line. RP line is horizontal, which is showing that capital is constant and labor unit is changing. And the isoquant curve is always convex to the origin from left to right. There are four types of isoquant curve. Four isoquant is showing here. One is isoquant number one, which is showing 100 unit of output. Second isoquant curve is showing 200 unit of output. Third isoquant curve is showing 300 unit of output. And fourth isoquant curve is showing 400 unit of output. Here the equilibrium point is E, F, G and H. If the gap between EF is less than the gap between FG is less than the gap between GH. It means if EF is less than FG is less than GH, then it will be showing diminishing returns to factor. It means we are using more unit of labor but getting the same level of output, but we are using more input. If we use more input and get same output, that shows diminishing returns to factor. If the difference between EF, FG and GH all remains same or equal, then it will be showing constant returns to a factor. And if the difference between EF is greater than FG EF greater than FG and FG greater than GH, then it will be show increasing returns to factor. It means returns to factor can also be shown with the help of isoquant curve analysis. This is showing constant returns to a factor with the help of isoquant analysis. Here the gap between EF is equals to FG is equals to GH. If the gap between EF, FG, GH all are same, then it will be called constant returns to factor. But the expansion path or RP line will be a horizontal line in case of returns to factor, because returns to factor law is applicable in short run, not in long run, in which one factor is variable and other factors remains constant. So this was the topic of production function or isoquant curve analysis. Now next topic is cost of production. Cost of production, first of all you must have to know about what is cost. The cost is the money expenses which incurred in the production of goods and services. So cost is the money expenses or money expenditures which incurred, which is necessary. Producer always use cost while producing the output. Here there are so many types of cost. One is money cost. As you know that four factors of production we use for the production of goods and services. like land, labor, capital, entrepreneur. Land gets reward in form of rent, labor gets wages, capital gets interest, and entrepreneur get profit. When all the factors of production get reward in form of money or in cash, that is called money cost. And next is real cost. Real cost can't be measured in terms of money. Real cost is that cost in which we use our valuable time or our comforts, the sacrifices which we use in the production of goods and services. The real cost is that cost which can't be measured in terms of money. For example, the sacrifices, the loss of comfortableness and comfortability, all these things are called real cost. When a student study at night for the exam purpose, he sacrifices his sleep or rest or comforts that can't be measured in terms of money, that is called real cost. Next is opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is the next best alternative which you have to forego for the production of any other commodity. Cost of production has another three types of cost like total cost, average cost, marginal cost. And cost may be total cost may be explicit or implicit. Explicit cost is also known as direct cost and implicit cost is called indirect cost. Explicit cost is same as money cost in which we use all the factors of production and pay their rewards in form of rent, interest, wages and profit directly. And implicit cost is that cost which is not directly seen but the cost incurred in the production of goods and services. For example, if a producer uses his own land area for the production of goods, he will not pay rent to himself. But if he hire the land from any other person, he must have to pay rent. So implicit cost can't seen, but it exists. So these are the types of cost. Next here, the difference between short-run fixed cost, variable cost, and short-run total cost. Fixed costs are those costs which can't change according to the change in output level. Variable cost with a clear by its name, variable, which can change, which can vary. Variable cost is the cost which can change according to the change in output. And short run total cost is the summation of fixed cost and variable cost. Total cost that is supposed to be incurred to produce a given output is short run total cost. The example of fixed cost is building, rent, insurance charges, etc. The cost of variable cost examples are like cost of raw material, wages cost, electricity cost, telephone bills, etc. And the total cost, which is the summation of total fixed cost and total variable cost, we can show it by using the diagram like this. Fixed cost remains always fixed. So fixed cost curve will be a horizontal line curve, which is always parallel to the x-axis. Variable cost always start from the origin and it's an upward sloping cost curve, which shows that as well as you want to increase the output level, you must have to use more inputs. So variable cost curve is always upward sloping, which shows that as well as increase the output level, input also increases or cost will also increase. And total cost is the summation of total fixed cost and total variable cost. So total cost curve always start from the that point where total fixed cost curve starts. So TC first unit is also called TFC or TFC first unit is also called TC. So TC curve always start from that point where the origin point is of TFC. And TC remains always higher from these two cost curves because TC is the summation of TFC and TVC. Next is the relationship between AC and MC. The relationship between AC and MC is very important in this cost analysis theory. AC curve shows average cost. Average cost is the per unit cost of output, and marginal cost is the net change in total cost which occur due to increase in one more unit of additional factor. So average cost curve is always U-shaped curve, which is showing that cost always in the beginning falls. After that, cost becomes maximum, minimum, or constant. At last, costs start increasing. Production is reversed. In the beginning, production increases. When production increases, cost decreases. When production is maximum, cost is minimum. When production start falling, then costs start rising. So production and cost both are inversely related with each other. AP curve is downward sloping U-shaped curve, but AC curve is simple U-shaped curve. MC always cuts AC from its lowest point. When AC is falling, MC falls before than AC. When AC is rising, MC rises before than AC. When MC cuts AC, here both costs are equal and MC generally cuts AC at its lowest point. And both AC and MC curves are always U-shaped curve due to the applicability of law of variable proportion, because AC and MC, these are short run cost curves, and short run cost curve is based on short run production function law, which is returns to a factor. So the U shape, the cause of U shape of AC and MC is applicability of law of variable proportion or returns to a factor. That's why this curve shape is always U-shaped curve. But the production curve shape is always inverse U-shaped curve. Next is short run cost function. What is this? Short run cost function tells us the minimized total cost of production of Q units of output when at least one input is fixed at a particular level. Because in short run, some factors remains constant, some factors remains variable. And if you use these two factors of production like variable and fixed, then we can get total cost. So total cost, STC is short run total cost, which is the summation of total variable cost and total fixed cost. Next, the diagrams of short run cost curves. Short run cost curves, under this concept, you must have to draw these diagrams first. AFC. AFC is showing average fixed cost. Average fixed cost is the per unit cost of fixed factor, which can be calculated by using TFC divided by Q. It is always downward sloping curve, rectangular hyperbola curve, which represent that as well as output increases, costs start diminishing. ABC, yellow line shows ABC curve, which is always U-shaped curve, and green line shows AC curve. AC is average cost curve per unit cost. Average variable cost is per unit cost of variable factors. And MC, blue line is always U-shaped curve, which cuts ABC, AFC, AC at its minimum point. And all these curves are short run cost curves, which is showing that in short run, as well as output increases, for in the beginning, cost decreases. After that, cost is minimum, and at last, cost start rising. And MC always cuts AC, ABC, and AFC at its lowest or minimum point. Next that is very important thing, derivation of long run cost curve with the help of short run cost curve. As you know that there are two types of cost, short run cost and long run cost. LAC curve can also derive with the help of short run cost curve. If we assume that here different short run total cost curves are SATC1, SATC2, SATC3, which is always U-shaped curve, SATC4, SATC5. These 5 SATC curves showing that a business plant, if any business plant has different plants, like Reliance Industry has different business plants like Reliance Industry, Geo Industry, Reliance Petrochemical, Reliance Ready-Made Garments, Reliance Fresh, and all plants have different cost curves, which we can show with the help of this U-shaped curve. And if we join all these SATC1, SATC, if we join At the minimum point of all these curves, we can derive LAC curve, which shows that in the beginning, cost is decreasing. That's why economies of scale is applicable. In the second stage, where the cost is constant, it means constant returns to scale law is applicable. And at last, LAC curve is upward sloping curve, which shows that economies are going to fall or diseconomies of scale is occurred. So LAC curve is always U-shaped curve, but the flatter U-shaped curve exists. In the long run, the firm can choose among different possible sizes of plant as determined by short run cost curve 1, 2, 3. LAC curve is always U-shaped curve, and it is also known as envelope curve because it covers all the short run cost curves. That's why it is called envelope curve. And the conclusion of this unit or today's topic is the production function, as I have discussed in the beginning, that production function shows the relationship between input and output, and technology that permits substitution between inputs provide better flexibility to the manager. And cost, which is always used for the production of goods and services, cost incurred in the case of production. So this is the last, this was the last topic of your BECC 131. Thank you.